Chair, roll call. Esther Adams, excused. Laura Benfield,
Present.
Gail Brewer, excused. Margot Brown Tunstall,
Present.
Margot Carrion, excused. Jacqueline De Leon, Melissa Del Val Ortiz,
Here.
Anderson Deng, Kevin Douglas,
Here.
Thomas Dowd, Gideon Dunkley, Jeffrey Eaton, excused. Anthony Foreman, Joseph Guagliardo,
Here.
Tessa Hackett Vieira, Gregory Hambrick,
Here.
Helen Hartman Konowski,
Here.
Barbara Jackson excused, Letitia James excused, Pamela Johnson, Candice Julian, Melinda Katz excused, Monica Major, Annie Meredith excused, Marilyn Mosley,
Here.
Edwin Murray excused, Sandy Myers,
Here.
James Otto excused, Dr. Mahendra Patel,
Yes, please.
Roxanne Prasad, Joseph Pierre,
Yes.
Jason Price,
Here.
Delia Soto,
Here.
Melissa Talbot,
Here.
Melissa Mark Viverto, excused, Peter Weiss, excused, Viria Williams,
Here.
Bernice Williams Johnson,
Here.
Clary Phillip, present. Mr. Chair, the rule is this.
Okay, thank you. We have a quorum. I want to thank everyone for coming. I should mention this prior. You notice that there's a videotape camera in the middle of the floor there. There is a new legislation that states that all public meetings go forward need to be videotaped, and also will be subsequently added to the website for streaming purposes. We will discuss in more detail as we get to the Governance Committee report as to that legislation, and I know we have representation here that can elaborate a little bit more than on that. It's also been stated in the email that went out, so just didn't want it to come as a surprise to anyone as to the reason that we're taping. I want to welcome everyone to the meeting, my first official meeting as chair and the first official meeting of this newly elected executive board. I look forward to fulfilling the responsibilities of this position and try to do my best to fill the shoes of my esteemed predecessor here, who's done a great job for so many years in that position. I look forward to feedback. You're going to notice as we go through the meeting, whatever's not broke, we're not trying to fix it. We're certainly going to just look to really engage the board members as much as possible to do the work that you've been so committed doing. Look forward to feedback and ideas that you may have to certainly move the meeting along and address issues that we're passionate about. I know it's a little warm in here, somewhat uncomfortable, so we'll certainly try to move the meeting along to minimize that. First order of business is the acceptance of minutes. It's all been sent to you, and it's also listed in your packet. And hopefully you've had an opportunity to review that. So if so,
Can I go on a motion to accept?
Second.
motion made by Gargiulo, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? There being none, so moved. There's no room for correspondence, so I'm going to move into our next section, section 2, where we're going to have a presentation of our financial and program quarterly report.
name is Justin Walter. I am the Assistant Commissioner for Finance at DYCD, and I will deliver the financial report. This is essentially the third quarterly report that I'm presenting to the board for this fiscal year. This is for city fiscal year 14. In city fiscal year 14, we have $33.9 million of funds available. But we have a total budget of just over $35 million because some of our funding had rolled over from the prior fiscal year. The CSBG total budget is broken down between program contracts, other contractual services, and personnel services. In program contracts, we have about $28.8 million this year, $1.5 million in other contractual services, and $4.7 million in personnel services for folks who work here at DYCD. In our program contracts, we have 290 contracts. 211 of those are neighborhood development group contracts. Year to date, we have $22.9 million in expenses of our $28.8 million budget, and we've made $25.2 million worth of payments. The difference between payments and expenses is that we give initial advances at the beginning of the year, so providers can have some cash at the beginning of the fiscal year. We're in the process now in the final quarter of recovering those at the end of the year. The payments we've made and the expenses we have will be equalized, so it will be the same. So right now, we're about 75% of total spending, which is where we'd expect to be. And we expect to be just about on budget. We have about $6.4 million yet to be paid. And those claims will come to DYCD for the months of May and June in the next 2 months. And then we'll be finished with the fiscal year 14. I am free to take any questions that anyone has.
Any questions, concerns about the financial report? No? Thank you, Justin, I appreciate it. One of the things that we discussed when the executive committee had their first meeting, numbers are hard to digest when you look at it for the first time. So in your reports that are going to be emailed to you, we ask that these reports be sent as part of that email, so at least you have a little bit of time to look at the financials. And we're also looking to have comparative figures. So this report compared to the report that's going to be presented at the next meeting, so at least you can look at the comparisons, and that may give you a better idea of how the financials look and maybe open up any questions or any concerns you may have. So if there are no further questions, is there a motion to accept the financial report?
So moved.
Second?
So it's been motion and it's been second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Abstentions? There being none, so moved. I'm happy that Commissioner Chong is present with us today, so I'm going to ask that he presents his report to the board.
I'll just make a few points. Again, want to congratulate Greg and the members of the executive committee. It's always good to bring new blood, in my experience, in nonprofit and government. And again, thank you to Joe for many years of service. Great to see many of you. I apologize for the lack of circulation. Our landlord's trying to get rid of us, so this might be part of the plan. But I just want to point out a couple of things that happened since the last meeting in March, I believe. The mayor released the executive budget in early May, and there are good news for DYCD beyond the programs that you oversee. One is that we got $145 million to expand after-school programs, and the good news is that we've selected winners. The Mayor's Office of Contract Services has signed off, and next week the mayor will be having a press conference to announce the new initiative and the rollout of 271 new programs this fall. Will be, when all is said and done, will be in 85% of all the middle schools in the city of New York. Quite an achievement. And then the other major development is that the mayor added $8.5 million for summer youth employment, and we're hoping that Kevin and his group gets us a little bit more. They were out in the rain yesterday outside City Hall Park, trying to get us 14 million, right?
14.2.
Oh, 14.2, okay. Yes. So, and as you know, the Summer Youth Employment Program is a great program that attracts a lot of interest. We have 130,000 young people who applied this year, and enough money for about 35,000 jobs. So, hopefully by the September meeting, we can tell you about how we did when the budget's adopted this year. Any questions? Okay, now I know we have a special presentation to some of the long-serving executive committee members and to Joe, so.
Yeah, so if I could set the stage for that. When the executive committee met, we met off-site and we also met here as our first executive committee. One of the first topics of business, obviously, was to recognize those who served faithfully as members here, those who served in leadership positions to really drive the business of the board. And really, we wanted to make sure that we recognize that, understand the importance of that service, and certainly look forward to fulfilling those shoes. So we wanted to present some certificates to those individuals that serve faithfully. So I'm going to ask that Joe help me. Okay. Don't worry, I'm going to put my jacket on. I feel like a wimp. I'm the only guy that took their jacket off. All the guys have their suit jackets on. But the certificates that we're going to present is going to read as such. Department of Youth and Community Development with the New York City Community Action Board hereby presents this certificate in great appreciation of the many years you have graciously given to the Community Action Program. Through your hard work as a member of the Neighborhood Advisory Board and the Community Action Board, your efforts on behalf of those in need in our community have helped make New York City a better place for all. Presented on this day, June 12th, 2014, signed by Commissioner Bill Shaw. So, oh, he made it so easy for me.
Yes.
Okay. First one is Javanka Conyers.
That's right. Yeah, the photo. The executive photo?
You guys, be careful, I'm full.
Want to look in my direction?
Okay, good. All right, you're pulling double duty. You're taking pictures and film.
It's very versatile.
Is that what the one you know? I didn't know that. You must be.
Yeah.
All right, next up is Carol Wilkins. I'm sorry.
Stay here. Right?
Right. And this one is special for one of the outgoing executive committee members. I'm happy to present this to Margot Brown Tustin. Take your time, Margot. We're waiting.
Thank you.
Let's give them all a hand. No, I'd like him to stand. We have one more. Yeah. We have one more. So this particular award, I'd like to present to the gentleman who's chaired this board for a number of years. I have a deep respect for this individual. He's passionate about the work here. And it certainly, as I was appointed chair, has continually supported me and given me some insight as to how I can be a focal point and be instrumental in moving this forward along. So really, and I like everybody to stand because this is years of service. So if everybody can stand and present this.
Be careful getting up.
I'm going to read this plaque. It gives me great pleasure to join your Community Action Board colleagues and the Department of Youth and Community Development in thanking you for your 3 decades of service to New York City. 3 decades. Through the work on behalf of the Community Action Program in almost 10 years as CAB Chair, you have contributed significantly to DYC's mission of bringing needed resources and services to low-income communities across the city. Your tireless efforts are a terrific example of our residents' personal dedication to lifting up others and making our city more fair, equitable, and just for everyone. On behalf of all New Yorkers, thank you for your leadership and commitment. I offer my best wishes for continued success in all of your endeavors. Sincerely signed by Mayor Bill de Blasio.
That's what it is.
I'm just going to ask that.
Careful of water. Stand in front.
Jason.
I know, don't skip me.
Okay, could you folks compress yourselves a little bit?
I'll end
Okay,
here.
perhaps. Okay, that's fine. That's good. I'll do a few of these. Great, thank you very much.
So I know Joe wanted to. Yeah. Sorry guys, I had to take the jacket.
This is going to be a 30-second thing. Everybody has already heard many stories. There's nothing like a brotherhood, or a sisterhood, or a family, and I've always considered us the good guys in a family. And there's nothing that moved me more than becoming the chair as this moment of leaving the chair. And so I'd like to give Greg a little gift. For fair disclosure, this does not come from DYCD money. But it's a little gift from one chair to another to show that this is a true succession, transition, and it's all family.
I appreciate it.
And like I told him a minute ago, I actually looked as young as he did when he started. That's the bad news.
And that is going to be pictures of progression from now until 3 years. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. Another hand for Joe Garza. Okay, so moving on with board business. Next up is the executive committee report, which should be listed in your packet. I'm going to go through it rather quickly. Some of the areas I touched upon. Carolyn, since you're here and it's listed in that report, is now a good time to discuss?
So, as you all see, we have videotaping today of the meeting. This is the first session we're being videotaped, and eventually we will move to webcasting. This is because of a new piece of legislation the City Council passed last December, and that became effective earlier this spring. And basically, the idea is to make meetings that are subject to the open meetings law more accessible to the public, so that people who can't actually be here physically can still know what happened. That's basically the gist of it. Hopefully, it won't be disruptive, and it won't be off-putting to anybody. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Carolyn. So present with the meeting, obviously, is myself, Melissa Devel Ortiz, who's the second vice chair, Sandy Myers, who's our third vice chair, Joseph Pierre, first vice chair, Claire Phillip, who's our secretary, and Jason Price, who's our parliamentarian. We went over a couple of things. As you may have noticed, the agenda tweaked a little bit. Just another way to just keep the meeting flowing, respectful of everyone's time. So obviously we want to, as much as possible, keep the meeting to an hour, but we thought it'd be helpful if we can just change the structure, put it in categories so you know what to expect in terms of the flow of the meeting and the certain topics that are going to be discussed. We also talked about the schedule and the summer meetings that are going to take place, which is going to end up being obviously one of our action items that we're going to talk about shortly thereafter. The committee chairs obviously reviewed their activities, and then in terms of the new business, I've already touched upon this. As a result of kind of our off-site meeting, some of the things that we thought would be helpful to the meeting, including the financials being sent out a little bit earlier. Go-forward meetings, we want to include some presentations, which actually is going to start today, from some of the programs that DYCD funds and some of the programs that you're involved with, so you can see firsthand some of the progress and success of some of the programs that are taking place. We also strategically talked about how we're going to engage the NABs, get more participation from the NAB chairs to come to our meeting and have us reciprocate and attend their meetings. So that gives you a little flavor of some of the things that we talked about. Again, just to get the meetings more engaged and just to continue the partnerships between the Community Action Board and NABs and certainly DYCD. Any questions on anything I discussed, any of the feedback I just discussed in terms of the executive committee report?
Did you discuss anything in reference to vacancies?
We did, and I believe that's going to be addressed in one of the committee reports. Were you concerned about vacancies in particular?
Yeah, and the fact that for so many years, a lot of communities have not been represented.
Right.
Because elected officials are not doing what they're supposed to do, which is to make the appointments. And I don't know, the agency has worked hard, I know that for a fact, in trying to improve the number of vacancies each and every year. But for some reason, it never gets up to where it needs to be in order to make this agency and this board function more effectively.
So we did discuss that in committee. We do have some ideas of how we might address those vacancies. And I think we have an action plan that will certainly address that. As Joe said, a lot of the work takes place in the committee. So we hope to see some resolutions of that within a reasonable time. I appreciate you bringing that up. So we have two action items under the executive committee report. One being the meeting schedule, which is in your packet, which is, thanks to DYCD, Sam Nichols is pretty much scheduled out until May of 2015. So you see the list of the next scheduled CAB meetings along with the committee meetings, worked around all of the various holidays. And then item 2 under that is authorizing the executive committee to meet on behalf of the board during the summer of 2014 as outlined in the bylaws. Any questions about the schedule or the meeting in the summer before we vote? Do I entertain a motion to accept the calendar for 2014, 2015 for the
So
full
moved.
board meetings?
Second.
It's been moved and it's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I apologize. Please state your name. All right, first day as chair.
Gloria,
I got to get acclimated to this.
Gloria
Thank you.
Benfield.
Gloria Benfield, motion, and seconded by Margot
Brown Tunstall.
Margot Brown. Thank you. Take me to task and make sure I follow through on that. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Next up will be the committee reports. I'll go in the order that's listed on the agenda. We'll first have Sandy, who's going to go through our participation committee report.
Great, thank you. So the minutes are in your packet as well. This, again, was since our first meeting as new chairs, went over what the committee will be working on over the upcoming year. So the participation committee, in addition to doing what it's done in the past, which is filling the NAB vacancies, we discussed doing more advocacy around CSDG, that once we have a better sense of how the budget will be this year, we might be involved in some more advocacy efforts. So traditionally, we've partnered with UICD, who plays more of an educational role, and us as the community members and advocates have done advocacy and lobbying around that. So if that's something that interests folks today, I'll do another plug. You can join the participation committee and be involved in those efforts. And then we also went over the fundraising workshop that UIC organized in all 5 boroughs over the last couple of months that were successful, and we helped get the word out about that. And then we also discussed what we saw earlier, the appreciation of outgoing members. So, I'll pass it over back to you.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Any questions, feedback on the committee report from the participation committee? Okay, next up, we're going to have the program committee report by Melissa.
Hi, everybody. So on May the 6th, we had a great meeting with a presentation by a wonderful group coming out of the Bronx, Mount Hope organization, and they have all their information is in your packet. But they have a wonderful health program where they actually engage local bodega to change their the products that they sell so that they can promote healthy alternatives to children in nearby schools, which was really great. I was very impressed. And we had a lot of back and forth discussion and gave a lot of suggestions. One of the other things that came out, as you can read in the minutes, was that we're going to be having a symposium scheduled for Tuesday on August the 12th, from poverty to opportunity. And that's going to be in Albany, right?
No, in Manhattan.
Oh, in Manhattan.
New York Law
Sorry.
School.
Manhattan. That's right, New York Law School. And that was really it. As far as the future, I would really like to hear, I guess, from our members, and maybe make sure that we go out of our way to select one group per community board, per NDA. So to make sure that all NDAs are represented during the programs committee. So if you could make any suggestions, would be greatly appreciated, and make sure, like Sammy said, to sign up at the front to be on the programs committee. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa. Any question, feedback on the program committee report? Okay, next up will be Mr. Joseph Pierre, who's going to go through our governance committee report.
Good afternoon, people. Welcome to the new board, the first meeting for this new executive. As you may know, and you would have had in front of you the package, and you would see that we have we met, and there was some recognition of members who past and present, and felt then that that was very good to do, and we look forward to a continuing good year for 2014-2015. Also, I just want to highlight that Carolyn did bring out what the city council has done, and you would see now that we have a camera that would record the events. But it also helps with transparency. It would also force elective members and other people who are responsible for having their people here at these meetings present. It would also force them to take a look at public TV. So it would be a good thing to continue this process as the city has seen it fit to do. So we look forward to doing that with you and partnering with the city. Joe, I would like you to please bring the people here present up to date as to the state audit and what the state recommended.
I'm going to talk about the audit, and I can say what they recommended.
Sure. Mike Bobbitt, Assistant Commissioner for Community Development Operations. So, as was reported at the last Community Action Board meeting, we had our triennial review with the New York State Department of State. We are still awaiting a written report, but at the close of their visit, members of New York State Department of State gave us some kind of a summation of their observations from having interviewed staff, gone through participant files, program files, visited a sample of the delegate agencies, receiving the results of the surveys that members of the board did, as well as participants directly served by CSBG. And overall, their findings are very favorable, so the board can feel pleased and relieved. They acknowledge us for having taken what they call the CORE, the Comprehensive Organizational Review and Evaluation, very seriously, responded as thoroughly, thoughtfully, and promptly as we could, so it reduced their questions coming on site. There's one programmatic recommendation I'll speak to, and there were a couple of suggestions, operational considerations that Joe can speak to that relate specifically to the CAB. Some may recall in preparation, anticipation for the CORE, Joe and I met with the board and we discussed how DYCD translates Roma, results-oriented management accountability, and the whole thinking about results and evidence that all CSBG must do, how we translate into our programs, how it's baked into our reporting, our data management, etc. So I'm anticipating this written recommendation about ways that we might further explicate that so that delegate agencies understand and buy into being a part of community action around the country. So we look forward to their advice and suggestions about that. And we've talked with New York State Community Action Association about ways to try to propel and further that. Other than that, programmatically, they're fine. I don't want to be too ahead of actually reviewing the written report, but we had a very favorable review, so we're pleased and relieved for that. So there were a few.
Okay, so like I said, so we're going to get the written report in, I guess, a couple of weeks. They came up with a couple of observations. One in terms of the Roma goals, which is the national standards that CSBG is based on. For those of you that came to the CAB training a couple of weeks ago, we now include that in much more detail in the CAB training. For those of you who weren't able to make it, don't be sad because I'm going to do it again over the summer and we'll have fun, right? Now, in terms of a couple of the operational things that are really minor, one thing is that they said repeatedly is how impressed they were about how we operated the CAB and the CSBG program. They said that repeatedly, and they go around the state. In particular, the way a lot of you got on the board, the election process, a lot of you got on the board, that Sam operates and helps devise and make sure it works smoothly. He got particular kudos, and they said that it was like a model that should be like replicated all over the country. That was like, they were just amazing. But they did say we had a couple things. So like tonight when Mr. Clary, Philip read that all the names and then said excused, we never did that before. They want us to start doing that so that it's in the actual record that it says excused. And then there were one or two other things that you're going to notice over the next year. So had we have had a letter, if we had a new person that came to the board and that person had a letter, you would then have to just vote, actually have a vote that's on the record to recognize that person. And then all of you, when your terms come up to an end, you'll, instead of just automatically how we reappoint you, you're all going to be, when you're brought forward again, you're all going to have to be then recognized again for another 3-year term. So like little minor things like that that came about. Otherwise, it was pretty good. We'll see actually what happens when we get the actual report.
Good.
So really, it was nothing. Much of nothing, just minor. Good.
Great. Under new business. As you would notice, under new business, DYCD would be providing more training. That's coming. And we'll also look at what we're doing, we would also be doing is asking the CAB to make some adjustments to the bylaws for video recording for the DYCD website. As you know, some months ago when we made a change to the bylaws, when it came to videotaping, we did not know that the city was also thinking about this same process. Now that the city has gone ahead and done so, we will make adjustments to the bylaws as they now stand. The other thing that I just want you to be aware of, and seeing that you looked at it, the chair asked the YCD staff to clarify the following question. One, what is an advisory board? And what is the role and function of the CAB as an advisory board? Those were the two questions that was asked by the chair to the YCD, and we look forward to hearing what's the breakout and how it does fall out. So, seeing that this was it, I want to say that thank you, and we look forward to most people getting involved with the governance committee, because the governance committee really sits and look at all things, the functioning of the organization, the rules. It helps to work with the rules book that we also have, and it helps to foster and grow this organization. So as the years go by, some changes will be made to the bylaws so that it strengthens the whole operational from this point of view standard. So I thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Any questions regarding the governance committee report? Any other feedback? Okay, if not, entertain a motion to accept the committee reports.
Auto accept.
All right, Auto motion, second. State your name, please.
Now, motion.
Gotcha. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? There being none, so moved. So we have two presentations, and as I stated earlier, go forward at the meetings. We'd like to at least spend some time during these meetings to talk about some of the programs and some of the initiatives related to DYCD, just so you know some of the progress that's going on. So the first one is going to be regarding our Summer Youth Employment Program, and to present that, we have Acting Deputy Commissioner Alan Chang, who's going to give us some information regarding it.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, committee. So, as most of you know, a couple months ago, Suzanne Lynn, who all of you knew, familiar with, left. So I've been picking up the pieces the last couple of months and trying to do a good job of that. But I appreciate all that I'm hearing tonight and all the work that you have been doing, so thank you. Just really quick, as you heard the Commissioner give a brief report on the Summer Youth Employment Program. It is coming up. We are starting in about 4 weeks, July 7th. This year, we actually made a couple of changes. Actually, we made a lot of changes to the program last year, which Andre White, who's up here, will tell you a little bit about. But one of the big changes for this year was that we actually moved everything up a month. We released applications in March versus April. That we have been, the April date has been around for a long time, but we moved everything up, listening to what our community-based organization providers have told us about having enough time and letting young people know early enough so that they and their families can make the appropriate plans for the summer. So we are right now looking at serving, as the Commissioner mentioned, about 35,000 young people. We have a budget of just under $49 million. It actually is a little bit more money than last year, but as you all know, the minimum wage also went up this year, so we needed that money to get us to the same level of young people that we had last summer. We are almost, with the 35,000 slots, fully enrolled because we started so early. But as you also heard the commission say, we are hopeful that there might be some more monies coming from the city council or, city hall, as the advocates have been out campaigning for our young people. That said, I want to bring up Andre White, who is the director of the Summer Youth Employment Program, and he can tell you a little bit more about where we are at in terms of the applications and jobs.
Good afternoon, well, good night, right? So let me start by asking this question. How many of you guys in this room are familiar with SYP? Let me see you raise your hands. How many of you guys worked in SYP? Okay, great. Okay, so some of you guys are still like dating yourself as well, right? So as you know, the Summer Youth Employment Program began in the 1960s. It's been around for a very long time here in New York City. It's very much a part of the fabric of New York City. We basically serve young people ages 14 through 24. They work up to 6 weeks in July and August. We pay them up to minimum wage for this year, which is $2 an hour, and they can work up to 25 hours a week. As Alan mentioned, the application process for this year began in March. We ended the application process on May 2nd. We received 129,000 applications for only 35,000 jobs, right? And Alan spoke about the budget and Gilson spoke about that before. In terms of the budget breakdown, currently we have $49.75 million, and that's $29 million in city tax levy funds, $1.6 million in CSBG funds, $14.4 million from the state. We raised $1.5 million in private funds, $2.5 million in REA Investment Act, and $288,000 in interest in funds. So currently we are on pace to serve roughly 35,000 young people. Unfortunately, we know that there are going to be many young people are disappointed. And I do like cities and working with advocates and working with Alan, we're constantly, encouraging corporate America to pump more money into the program because obviously there's a need and young people want to work. And clearly the budget is not going to take us up to where we need to go. Currently, we work with 50 community-based organizations across all 5 boroughs, resulting in 98 contracts. And one on Staten Island, to include these folks always ask me that. So do we have serve kids on Staten Island? We do. We have a CBO on Staten Island. Last year, we changed the model for SYP into what we call 4 service options. And I'm going to talk about those options. Service option 1 is for younger youth, and those are young people ages 14 through 15. They can work up to 20 hours over 6 weeks, and they're also paid at the minimum wage. Again, they're placed in different settings, the non-profit sector, for-profit sector. And for the first time last year for this particular age group, we introduced service learning and community service projects for those young people. The second option is what we call our older youth component for young people ages 16 through 24. They can work up to 25 hours a week, and they also get paid at the minimum wage, which is $8 an hour, and they work for 6 weeks as well. Option 3 is what we call our vulnerable youth option. These are young people who are facing certain barriers. They might be in the foster care system, they might be runaway homeless, they might be court involved, or actually the new term is actually justice involved, or they might be receiving preventive services through ACS. These are young people who are facing significant barriers. So they're recruited through our city partners that we work with, including ACS, NYPD, Department of Probation. We basically ensure that these young people get a job throughout the summer. There's a case manager that's assigned to each one of these young persons to ensure that they have a meaningful experience. And as you know, when you're vulnerable, obviously it's very difficult for them to retain throughout the summer. So we ensure that that case manager provides support services and make sure that whatever needs that they have, that those needs are being met. And our 4th option is our Ladders for Leaders program, which is our unsubsidized program for young people ages 16 through 24. And it's our competitive employer-based program where these are people facing corporations throughout the 5 boroughs, and the employers actually pays the wages for these young people. It's a very competitive program, as I said before. They have to go through 30 hours of pre-employment workshop before they're actually placed. They have to also go through interviewing techniques. They have to actually go through different types of workshops, as I mentioned before, and they have to actually interview for their own job with the employer themselves. They're actually just not placed with the employer. Last year, we served 35,957 participants. We are on track to serve at least 35,000 this year as well. And we received 135,000 applications last year. Program day for this year, we started on July 7th, we end on August 23rd, and the first payroll should be on July 25th. Do you guys have any questions for me?
That was a wonderful presentation. However, could we get a fact sheet with the information? The reason why I'm asking that is because the 4th level, this was my first time hearing that part, but I am familiar with the other sections. But it's very good when we go out and we are saying various things about why individuals should join NADs as well as our CAB because of this program, and everything is interrelated. So if we could get a little fact sheet with the information.
Absolutely, we can definitely pass that.
That would be excellent. Thank
When-
you.
When was the end, August 23rd?
Can I ask what the percentage is of each group, roughly?
Sorry?
What the percentage is?
Okay, so the slots or?
How many young people in each of the categories?
Yes, roughly.
Okay, so for the younger youth, we have roughly 30%, and the older youth is 70%. That involves the vulnerable youth category and the unsubsidized piece as well.
For vulnerable youth, we set aside 1,000 slots. Those are the young people with barriers. And for the unsubsidized, the one that where the employers pay the wages, that's unlimited. We actually right now have about 300 or 350, somewhere around the 350 slots. But obviously, as more employers step forward and want to hire, that goes up.
Are there different hours of operation for each one of those categories?
No, well, in terms of what the young people could work.
Yeah, the hours
Right,
they
so
start.
they could work as early as 9, right, depending on their age, and you go as late as 11 or 12 if they're over 21. 11 at night.
Wow.
Yeah. If they're over 21, because we're serving people up to 24. So according to the labor laws, you can work up until
So what
11
about
p.m.
the kids in the younger category?
They work typically from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And if they have summer
To
school,
work 3 p.m.?
yes. And if they have summer school, we sort of work on the schedule with them where they might come in at 12 and work until 5.
It is labor.
But according to the labor law, though, if you're 14 years old, you can work until, I think, up until 9 p.m. when
Yeah.
school is not in session.
How are the vulnerable youth classified? What are the vulnerable youth?
So there are certain barriers, right? So they must be court involved, right?
Oh, in court cases?
Is right.
Okay.
They must be in the foster care system, right? So they work
They must be what?
in the foster care system.
Okay.
They're receiving preventive services through ACS, which means that they're trying to prevent them from getting maybe into the system, the court system, and also if they're runaway homeless, that classifies them as a vulnerable.
Can I suggest something to the chair?
Yes.
Can you get a mic?
Yeah,
Because we cannot hear.
I can.
I'm using my accent, I'm sorry.
No, it's not your accent. No, it's not your accent.
That would be.
It's not your accent.
It's my Jamaican accent, I'm sorry.
No, just that.
Do you have the mic?
No, I give an answer that you said the ACS, and this gentleman said 1,000 slots
set
are
aside 1,000
automatically
slots.
set aside. So no one else can get these slots.
It's only 1,000.
You said,
Ask and you shall receive.
The question is, you said
It's not a
that
lot.
kids that are vulnerable are kids that come from the courts?
So we work with various city agencies here in the city, and they work with specific young people who are facing specific barriers. So what we have done, we have looked at the barriers that we're working with. For example, we know that ACS, they specialize in the foster care system, so we partner with them. And they recruit those young people for us, and they actually assign a caseworker to that young person when they're placed on the program with us. If they're court involved, they're coming through maybe Department of Probation, So they actually can't apply online. You have to be recruited by one of the city agencies that we work with.
So a kid that maybe some mother whose young woman is going through domestic violence and may not come through reports, how do we help update them?
Domestic violence is not one of the barriers, but what we do across the board for all of our providers, if a young person comes in to see one of our providers, there are other support services that that agency might offer, or we might be able to refer to one of those services. So she might not necessarily fit the category of vulnerable youth in terms of SYP, but if she comes in, we want to ensure that she's getting some sort of service. So we ensure that we refer to some sort of services within that same agency or a partnering agency.
Have you considered raising that amount? Because I know the Bronx have lots of vulnerable.
We actually raised the amount. When we introduced the VY category back in 2009, it was actually 600 slots. And when we recognized that there was a need, and we listened to the city agencies that we partnered
So
with.
this is what we're trying to do?
Yes, so this is the second year of the contract. Last year was the first year, and we increased that to 1,000 slots.
And I also want to just add that, we are serving those categories of young people in our regular program, but one thing that we have to be conscious about is that a lot of young people don't want to be categorized in that sense. So they may not volunteer that information, but they are coming through our program. This is a way where we were getting referrals from these other city agencies, and we set aside these slots for those referrals.
That makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We thank Alan and Andre for that presentation. Two notes I want to point out in regards to that, just to give some thought to the board when we talk about how you can get involved, and these questions are great. Number one, surely the lack of companies to support the number of kids applying for SYPE is an issue. So these statistics that I'm hearing is similar to what we heard last year. Over 130,000 youth applied, you can only serve 36,000. So if you have employers, friends of employers in your network that we need to engage, certainly we need that information. Engaging the employers is a tough piece, but as an employer who participates in SYEP and who has supported the Ladders for Leaders, we're one company, so it's about so many we can employ, right? If we have tons of other companies that can support that, then you're talking about other kids that certainly you can keep off the street and keep out of trouble. And then there's a statistic that Commissioner Chong emailed to me, and pardon me, I forgot who conducted the study, but there is a direct correlation to kids who start work early at the ages of 14, 15 and up, who go on to have successful careers through higher education and so forth. So that is something also to think about. So it may not help to address those numbers this year, but certainly if we're looking at next year to make a dent in employing well over 35,000 kids for a similar youth employment program, then that's something I'd like to see. We got room for one question, because see, you've been bad. You haven't been keeping me on task with the time. I'm joking. We have room for one more question.
So this is actually more of a comment/advertisement for the folks who seem to be interested in this idea of getting more youth jobs. It was mentioned earlier the hope is to get more funding to expand the Summer Youth Employment Program. Both Sandy and I are part of what's called the Campaign for Summer Jobs here in the city, and that's an advocacy effort where we work with the City Council and the Mayor to try to increase funding for the program. We're actually in the middle, we just started a campaign to get to 100,000 summer youth jobs within 5 years, so to really kind of dig into that size of the population that really applied and really getting because there aren't enough resources. So really just want to say this is a campaign that you guys can actively participate in if you actually want to see more summer jobs and you want to work with us. And I would just encourage you to either see Sandy or myself after, get our contact information. We'd love to have your support in helping us get more summer jobs. Thank you.
I'm sorry, one more question.
Is there a time limit for organizations, businesses to submit to the summer youth program that they would like to hire summer youth?
So the question is the time limit, and is there a deadline for them to participate?
So the program starts July 7th. Obviously, that would be the deadline.
The deadline is July.
We want to get young people.
Okay, the
situated by
deadline
July
would
7th.
be July 7th. Okay.
So we have one more presentation. Thank you for that. We have one more presentation by Assistant Commissioner Mike Bobbitt. You heard a lot about the 50th anniversary of the War on Poverty and the upcoming symposium that's going to be taking place in August. So Commissioner's going to kind of give us some updates real quick on where we stand with that and what you can expect to take place.
Thank you, Chair. I'm compelled to use the microphone because Alan and Andre did as well. So very quickly, in the interest of time, I'll be short. But before I mention the symposium, one thing that I do want to flag: in the last board meeting, we said we knew there'd be a partial restoration of the sequestration cuts from CSBG, and so we have received word from the Department of State on the restoration. So we're in the process of amending the contracts to our program. So I wanted to make sure I conveyed that bit of good news to the group. I think what I'll do, since I see in your packets there's information about the Poverty Symposium, is I'll very quickly summarize and just hit a couple of highlights. So as was mentioned in the program committee report, we've selected Tuesday, August 12th for a one-day symposium called From Poverty to Opportunity. And for those who may not recall, August 12th represents part of a statewide campaign commemorating the 50th anniversary of the War on Poverty. So Lyndon B. Johnson passed the Economic Opportunity in August of 1964, and so here it is, 2014, and we want to recognize nationally the impact and to affirm the War on Poverty has indeed not been lost, but lives on in the hard work that our delegate agencies do, the hard work that you do on the board, and that the NABs do, and the staff, for our part, tries to do. So we are working in cooperation with the New York State Community Action Association, with our funding conduit, the New York State Department of State, as well as some other strategic partners. New York Law School has graciously donated their wonderful space on West Broadway, ample space where we can certainly have 300, possibly more attendees participate in the event. And over the coming days and weeks, we'll be talking to additional sponsors. Some have been stalwart and have supported a lot of DYC programs in the past. I'm thinking about organizations like Health First. I'm certainly thinking about organizations like Models. And we want to recognize and continue to embrace that support in the spirit of what Sandy suggested in participation. We would certainly welcome any roles the CAB, the participation company, and others may have if they, in their network, think there might be financial sponsors or in-kind contributions or others who might want to commemorate what we've done, what we're doing. We're eager to receive those contributions and hear those conversations. So what I'll do is I'll let you know, our commissioner certainly confirmed to speak. I spoke with Veronica Cruz from the Department of State, who has oversight of the Division of Community Services. That's all the community action agencies across the state. She has secured Department of State Secretary Cesar Perales to speak. We are looking to secure additional plenary speakers, probably notables here, within the city and within the state. It's hard to know Governor Cuomo's schedule ahead of schedule, but she's certainly doing her part to keep an eye on his schedule. There is the possibility that he will be in attendance. I made copies of this. I won't go over this. You can kind of take these on the way out. There will be 10 panel discussions. Each recognizes one of the programmatic areas that we fund under CSBG, and there will be three, yes, thank you. There will be three workshops made available as all focusing on topics. See, we pay for technical assistance under CSBG too, so some of those service providers will be able to do demonstrations of how to leverage volunteers, how to do evaluations of your program. So we contend that the day will not just be politically symbolic, but will be practically useful for the community-based organizations, local elected officials, faith-based providers, students of human services, law school, etc., that will attend. So I think you'll see all of that in the summary. I think you'll see the panel discussions. We're glad that staff from New York Law School really wants to embrace this. They'll be moderating several discussions, and we're reaching out to others, some of the other city agencies whose work is relevant to our anti-poverty work. So for instance, HRA's Office of Citywide Health Insurance Access, for instance, New York State Mayor's Office to Combat Domestic Violence, New York State Department for the Aging. They all want to play helpful, supportive roles in the conference. We're really looking forward to it. We think it's going to be a big deal and get favorable attention. We look forward, please mark your calendars. 8:30 to 5, full day, but a fun day. Hope to see members of the CAB there in cooperation with us. Are there any questions? I'm just trying to manage time, so I don't want to go on too long, but yes.
Are NAB members invited if they want to come?
I would say so, yes. Yes, that's one of the great things about New York Law School. We're investigating whether after we reach capacity, if we might have an overflow room, you know, it may not be able to be in the auditorium, but they can kind of bring it by video into one of the other classrooms. So yes, we want to give some priority to practitioners and workers, but we've tried to arrange it, and we're glad that we have a partner that will allow us to fully embrace both NAB and CAB as well. Pardon me? Office of Citywide Health Insurance, I said. Sure. All that? Okay, sorry, okay. Are there any other questions about this issue? Okay, look, yes, please.
The in-kind, is that in a particular item that the different groups can donate or contribute?
I would suggest anyone who's interested in discussing it to discuss it with me offline. Yeah, we are open to looking at meaningful ways of recognizing and celebrating the war on poverty. Yeah.
You have to register.
Yes, a save the date will go out probably Monday or Tuesday of next week. We'll have an online registration form. We don't intend to charge a registration fee, but we do want to be able to track who's involved. And I neglected to mention, but in the handout that's going around, we have 3 supposed tracks. So some people might want to emphasize youth services, or adult services, or immigrant services. So we've designed a way that you can pick and choose what you want, but if you have a particular area of focus, the day can be meaningful for you.
Can I invite key folks from my community?
Yes, you can. When the save the date goes around, we encourage you to share it broadly with your network. And when the registration link goes live, we invite you to share that broadly with your network as well.
Okay, great.
Other questions? If not, I just want to offer a couple of things that weren't in the Commissioner's report, and I promise to be brief. So the Commissioner spoke about the budget and several things that the city has put in place. One thing I wanted to let you know that's a fairly programmatic consideration is now under the leadership of Steve Banks of the Human Resources Administration. The city is looking to align its legal services under HRA. And so there is an ongoing discussion right now between DYCD and HRA as to how that will impact immigrant legal services, that including work that's funded under CSBG. So I don't have precise news to convey to the board right now. I just wanted to make sure that we're being fair and transparent and letting you know that we're having those conversations, and also to be very specific and clear to the CAB that for our part, we are helpfully communicating with our colleagues at HRA all the oversight and everything that's required to have due diligence of how CSBG funds are spent. So when there are details to share, we'll certainly follow up, whether because of the timing it's in the executive committee or the next board meeting, but I just wanted to make sure that we had apprised you of that situation. I don't know if there are questions about that, but I just wanted to be clear. Yes? Yeah, let me do this. Yes, okay. And so the last remark that I wanted to offer, yesterday was the annual conference for the New York State Community Action Association. And so a couple of things happened yesterday. One, those of you who remember Cindy Coulter, my predecessor in this role, up until her departure, she served on the board of NISCA. And so elections were held yesterday. And so I've been appointed as an at-large member to the board. So I pledge to try to appropriately represent DYC's interest in my dealings with New York State Community Action Association. And I also wanted to let you know that at the meeting, NISCA wanted to recognize the hard-working staff who have been doing community action for 25 years or longer. And so I wanted to let the board know that we have several of those employees at DYCD. So I'll just briefly name them. Francine Malozzi has worked for DYCD for 40 years. She's in our literacy unit. Barbara Sherry has worked within my unit in CD operations for 32 years. Yvonne Harris is one of the directors that reports to me. She oversees our NDA program. She's been here 28 years. Excuse me. Danielle Murphy is one of our contract managers who oversees many of our healthy families and housing programs. She's been here over 25 years. My assistant, actually, Karen Pitt Gonzalez, has helped with a lot of administrative support. She's been here 25 years. Beatrice Parker helps us manage the flow of our contracts as well as a lot of administrative matters. She's been here 26 years. And last but certainly not least, someone who will be very familiar to all the members of the board, standing right now, probably feeling surprised at the back of the room, our own Venus Burton has been a little over 26 years with DYCD doing community action. And Joe and I and all the staff wanted to make sure that we recognize Venus's contributions, and we certainly wanted to take this moment because this is Venus's last board meeting. She served ably and capably, and retirement is imminent, so we wanted to allow you the opportunity to recognize all that Venus has done at the back room to help support you. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Okay, is there any old business? Any old business that we need to discuss? Any new business? All right, so we have hands up. Yes, say it.
I was late, but I'm not absent. I'd like the record to reflect that, please. For today.
Yeah. He absolutely did, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
I just would like to say Happy Father's Day to all the men. And we say it for the mothers, so without further ado, I'd like to say
Thank you.
Amen. I have one last thing to say. Please, now that we have a camera front and center, say your name when your name and your NDA that you're representing for the record, because everybody's not being heard on the videotape, and so in case any of your locals are watching on the webcast, they know who you are, they know that you're present, they know that you're representing.
You mean when you give your attendance?
When you ask a question during the meeting, my name is, my NDA, and my question.
Great. All right, that's it for new business. I thank everyone. I got you. Well, let me say my remarks first.
Does this come off?
With the hammer.
Is that crazy glue to what? I want to thank everyone. Seriously, I know we ran a little bit past time, but I want to thank everyone, all the board members for the feedback, the executive team for their support, and we met, and I feel confident and I feel privileged to work with this team. To Joe, G, thank you for that presentation. I greatly appreciate that. To Sam and to Joe and other members of DYCD for guiding me through this process. I look forward to the next meeting. Now, is there a motion to say it?
Second.
You got the names?
I will.
Bernice Williams, second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Have a great evening and enjoy your summer this evening.
And manja.
Hold on. Yeah, I'd like to know what's actually,
He's gonna email the pictures to Joe, and then we'll get them.
Yeah, I'll get them to Joe.
Okay.